Ton an. Okay. Thank you, Marvin, for the introduction. I'm Chami. I work for Get Started. That is Bitkom's startup initiative, and I'm going to be a host for the next 60 minutes, maybe 55 minutes only, as we will talk about today's topic, which is financing the growth stage in quantum computing. As an introduction, I would like to give you some numbers to ease into the topic a bit. So. According to the McKinsey Quantum Technology Monitor 2024 and 2023, we had a decrease of 27% of total private investments in our quantum technology startups. And we had a decrease from $2.35 billion globally to a dip towards $1.71 billion, which sounds quite bad at first. However, if we compare the 27% with the 37%, a total decrease in global startup funding generally, and then we can see that despite challenging economic times and geopolitical times, interest in quantum technology manages to stay somehow stable. But I would also like to add the decrease in quantum technology startup investment is only reflected in private funding, whereas public funding actually increased in 2023 from 20% of all total funding to 33%. There are a lot less startups founded. The deal sizes have decreased. However, when investment has taken place, the money was invested in Series B, mainly 62% investment rounds, 23% in Series A rounds, and 8% in seed investments. So the numbers paint a fairly ambiguous picture. Not easy to say whether it's like all dismay when it comes to financing growth stage and quantum computing. To bring some clarity to that topic, we've invited 3 experts to shine some light and entangle this web of confusing numbers a bit. But instead of me talking for another 5 minutes, I would like our guests to introduce themselves. In the case of Tobias, DTCF Tobias, and Jan, please state your name, like where you work, what your fund's perspective is on quantum computing investments, what areas do you focus on, what is the typical size of investment that you do for quantum computing startups, what specific companies have you invested in recently, and Kipu Tobias, for those who have missed the 2 other Kipu sessions today, introduce yourself, your startup, what does Kipu do, and also report some of your main financing milestones or successes you have been able to achieve recently. Tobias, I would like you to start.
Thank you, Chami. My name is Tobias Faupel. I'm a chemical engineer by training, and I'm a co-managing director of the DeepTech and Climate Fund. We are an early growth fund, so we invest starting at Series A, ticket sizes 5 to 10 million euro. And one of our investments is sitting right here. We've invested in Kipu last year. We've also done a second quantum computing investment in the company Planck from Munich. And what sets our fund apart a little is that we have a long fund duration that I think fits to this area of investing. So we have a 25-year fund duration, investing 10 years and divesting 15 years. We are quantum investors. I think we've shown this with the 2 investments, and roughly out of the 70 to 80 portfolio companies that we intend to invest in up till 2031, I would say maximum 10% will be in the quantum arena. So we are looking forward to meet quantum sensing, quantum communications, and other companies invest that are dealing with quantum enabling technologies. So being a deep tech investor, I think you cannot ignore quantum technologies as an investing field.
Good. So my name is Jan Westerhues. I'm partner with Bosch Ventures. As the name suggests, it's a corporate VC, but we come with no strings attached. So you can look at us as a theme fund. We invest in electronics and software globally, basically. Have about 900 million under management, are in our 5th fund by now. And quantum is part of what we do. We're actually involved in quantum technologies since 2018. Have looked at everything from quantum sensing, communication towards computing hardware and software. Ended up investing in hardware twice and software once. No investments in communication and sensing, unfortunately, so far. And sorry, we're also a typical A/B round investor, like to deploy something like 7 million in a first go and could go up to 25 in a single investment.
Okay. Yeah, hi. I'm also Tobias from Kipu Quantum. And, I'm happy to be here, and we already bring like 20% of the audience as well. Nice to have you here. Kipu Quantum is a quantum software startup where we closed like 10 months ago around with DTCF and also with HV and other investors. In total, after a pre-seed round where we were really early, like showing a concept of how to use quantum algorithms to tailor-made them to specific problems and bring them to specific hardware, and therefore have and speed up and bring usefulness or quantum advantage earlier to the market. We secured like this roughly 15 million euros right now, and currently we want to prove and show together with customers that we can actually accelerate this valley of death between the vision that we can all calculate everything with quantum computers and the reality that the hardware is quite early and we can't show value to industry customers yet. And that is why we will continue to need funds and scale the technology that we have and that we secured with different funding methods.
Thank you, three of you, for your introduction. My first question is maybe a bit of a mean one. Jan, we already mentioned Kipu has managed to raise some money from a DeepTech and Climate for, but unfortunately not from Bosch Ventures yet so far. And if my research is correct, Bosch Ventures has invested in Quantum Motion, which is a British company, in Sintu, which is a French company. Correct me if I'm wrong, no German quantum startup in the portfolio yet. Could you shine some light on that? What are you looking for in a promising quantum startup that you have not found yet in Germany?
That's a very good question. By the way, Sintel is not a quantum startup. They're in photonics, so you're right. It's our portfolio company. So the companies we invested in was INQ in 2019, I think, and pretty much at the same time in Zapata on the software side. And that's, I think, the main reason why until now we haven't engaged in another software company, because Zapata took a very, very broad approach. Now maybe there's an opening again. The thing here, what are we looking for? We don't care where the companies are. So that's as simple as it is. And then it comes down to right technology at the right time. I can tell you about why we went into quantum motion, but that's not really comparable to Kipu. So I'm always hoping for German investments. Until now, we have few and far apart.
So, Tobias, unlike Jan, you were kind of convinced by Kipu's sales points. I also listened to a podcast yesterday where Daniel Volz was a guest, your CEO. You already mentioned that you want to accelerate the time at which quantum advantage can be achieved. In several podcast episodes, he and Enrique actually put a very a definitive timeline there. Actually, they're talking about 13 months, 15 months, because they have seen very promising developments on the hardware side. Tobias, I guess you believe that? Do you think that timeline is realistic? Is that the reason you invested, or what were the reasons that you decided to lead the round for Kipu?
I think what's clear is that you need software. So we wanted to do a software investment in that space, and the big overarching thing that everybody talks about here is basically quantum advantage. When does it come? And I think Kike is a very prominent person always preaching, you know, quantum advantage is coming, and I'm also here and talking to a lot of people. When does it come and how does it come? And I think that's what makes it difficult to invest for other investors. When do we have this point of commercialization? When do we have the use cases so that we can see really the advantage tangible? So it's a tangible advantage and not something, a problem that we can use with classical computers anyways. I think that point goes a little further out there, but if you listen here, and outside is the IBM booth showing the roadmap, somewhere in 25, 26, they plan some really leapfrogging technological advantages, and they see in 2029 on their roadmap, they really see what they call, you know, logical quantity advantage. So I think we investors, we need to see customers, use cases, and commercialization, and that's why some investors shy away, and why we also look not in Germany only, but Europe. I think it's absolutely true. It's a global market, or at least a Western world market that we have to look at.
Tobias, like Kipu Tobias, I saw you like you moving a bit, while the other Tobias talking. Like, what were you reacting to the timeline, saying in 2029, like we can do that earlier, or
No, so yes, as Kike always points out, we are able to use all qubits on different hardware. IBM is, after the history with Watson, really sincere and make very qualitative roadmaps, so we can rely on from history and what they propose. We see that the next chip generation in 2025 will bring us to a level. It's always difficult to define what is industrial usefulness, what is quantum advantage. From my point of view, it's when the customer paid the hardware and has an actual gain and doesn't pay it from his strategic budget, but out from R&D or whatever he or she wants to use us for. So we work closely with different hardware providers. So it's at the end, and that was what we discussed in the due diligence back and forth, is of course there's an imminent risk that the roadmap for hardware takes longer than we all expect. That is the reason why we are always in fundraising mode. That is the reason why we always have to make the trade-off between a clean IP portfolio and customer interactions that usually lead to discussions regarding the value, the long-term value of projects. But no, I totally agree. It's a game that we have to play on different levels. It looks like a 3D chess game, how to allocate resources, and we have to wait, and we will rely on hardware like the first generation of computers or AI did as well. So that's part of the game, and I think the evaluation was reflecting the uncertainty that Kipu still has.
Well, you were glad that you mentioned AI. Did you? Like, you did mention AI, didn't you?
I did,
Yeah,
but I'm not an expert.
But, I just wanted to ask, like we're here, like at the Quantum Summit, which is a bit of like a sister conference to the what's now called Artificial Intelligence Data Summit. I think yes, last year it was like Big Data AI Summit. So I'm kind of curious what the name is going to be next year. What would
Quantum and AI.
Quantum AI is going to be and it's internally we call it IDAC now. So I'm curious how you call it next year. How would you define or describe the relationship between AI and quantum? Do you feel like quantum technology is a bit in the shadow of AI? Are you kind of competing with generative AI investments? Because the investments in generative AI have not decreased last year, I think, if I'm correct. So how would you describe that relationship? Is it like competitive, antagonistic, or actually quite complementary?
I think these two technologies will merge together because yes, it's true. AI is now way more important on the landscape, and that is due to the ChatGPT effect. There was not the ChatGPT moment for quantum computing yet that everybody directly understands what the value of that technology is. Therefore, for me, that is maybe not a precise definition, but if you work with the AI today and your answer is within a strong data set, then of course AI will find you or give you a good probability. If I have 1 million molecules already measured and I wanted to find the best one in it, an AI can tremendously accelerate my search. If I want to calculate something new, AI can't help me if my desired result is out of the data set. So there will be a combination. Of course, we use AI tools in order to optimize our approaches. There will be use cases for AI and there will be use cases for quantum, because sometimes in science you want the real result and not the most probabilistic analysis. For example, protein folding. What Google can do, or what Google can do in AI measures is interesting for people, but we get a lot of requests from pharma companies who want to calculate proteins using quantum computer. Because if you actually are in the search for new molecules, you need multiple tools, and I think AI has advantages in some instances, but also there's the necessity to truly calculate and learn and understand, and that is what quantum computing is about.
Yeah, I also read that it just broke a record when it comes to protein folding, right? Breaking IBM's previous record. So congratulations to that.
Thank you.
And Tobias, what's your viewpoint on the relationship between AI and quantum technology?
I think Kipu Tobias described it correctly. They will merge in the future. I think when I take the investor's view, it's really that quantum is in the shadow, I would say, because if you look at the hype of startups and how investors look at it, with AI is in every pitch deck. You can read AI, and yes, we do see, as you pointed out, the numbers are increasing. For AI investments, very highly valued seed rounds are taking place. US investors coming here to Europe, to Berlin, and investing very early in rounds. And we don't see that in the quantum space. So if I take the investor's perspective, I think we have to make use of, let's say, the pharma companies and investors in that companies. For example, the round at Planck that we orchestrated is with a family office that was never at the table before investing or even on the landscape. So I think it's as interesting for us, but we have to get towards or talk towards a different investor space. So the investor space for quantum is more diverse, more heterogeneous, and is not the standard VC companies that are currently running towards AI startups. So we have to look a little broader in order to finance, I think, the next quantum startups and scale-ups. What do you think?
Yes, but not but. I think what we're seeing is a very typical transition from one hype cycle to another hype cycle thing in venture capital. That's how venture capital works. Sorry, guys, to debunk the thing. It's like VCs are lemmings, right? So you have some new development, new technology. Everybody's hopping on. Some people make some money very early, and then at a certain point in time, everybody's kind of positioned, and you typically, unless you're a specialized fund, you don't want to take 15 investments of the same kind. You need to move on, and then the next thing comes along, and that's typically 3-4 years. So 3 years ago, I think I saw a pitch deck where in one pitch deck I had distributed ledger, quantum computing, and AI. That was a record. We did not invest. So that's the usual thing. I think the unusual thing about quantum computing here is really the unusually long time scale and the amounts of money that are involved. It's not your run-of-the-mill semiconductor, 50 million in, you're done type of investment.
Thank you. You mentioned a very heterogeneous investor landscape. Kipu, Tobias, I can imagine that since quantum technology is such a research and development intensive field, that it might be hard to convince or explain to investors what you're actually doing. Like, you have managed to raise money from more generalist VCs, but also more like a specialized VCs. How do you deal with that challenge of maybe like that your counterpart you're sitting across during negotiations might not have like Kike's expertise and might be struggling with grasping the concept behind your technology?
So usually we don't bring the experts to the first discussion because it's actually not necessary. And yes, there was a trend in our recent, in our last funding round that generalist VCs or VC searching for the new hype, and now DeepTech is more in the focus, and was always maybe an opportunity to make early investments. So we saw that trend, but to be honest, most VC funds have enough resources to hire smart people, and in your case, it took a couple of days till Jonas was up to speed and understood it and had some expert calls, and then in the case of the upcoming due diligence, we had deep dives in various topics. But I think it's possible. Of course, it's of value to have a specialist maybe in the team, but on the other hand, there is an imminent risk that the technology maybe doesn't work because of you don't know. So we're talking about technological risk that maybe you can't solve with money. But I think to evaluate, in our case, there were a couple of discussions with early customers. But if you talk to the senior vice president of quantum computing at BASF and you get a half an hour interview, that can maybe bridge the gap between understanding and believing. And in my case, it's easy. I'm a chemist, so I can't explain it in detail. So that is a plus also for our CEO. He's also a chemist, so we can try of explaining it in a way that it's good enough to understand. And if you want to dig deep, no worries. There are enough specialists in the team to cover you.
Tobias, Jan, can you walk us through your due diligence process for a bit? I'm curious, like, how do you just like hire the people? How do you make sure that, you know, like the startup founder sitting in front of you is like actually telling the real stuff, and, you know, you're investing the money that you're responsible for prudently?
Thank you.
Come on.
All right. So maybe back to basics. I think in our fund, about 50% of our people are physicists, and the other 50% are engineers. So and our job is to, you know, try to get our heads around all different kinds of crazy technologies to a certain extent, and then of course bring in specialists that we don't hire, you know, permanently, but have access to, and Bosch, you know, the Bosch universe helps. I always tell people, you know, it takes 5 phone calls and I find the person that did her PhD in exactly that problem and is happy that finally somebody asks, right? So that's a great resource. Other than that, we also, you know, call university professors, and if nothing helps, pay them money for their expertise. Now, quantum computing is a very, very, very difficult field, even for deep tech investors, because 2 different companies, you have 2 Nobel laureates that tell you why their approach is the only approach that could theoretically work. And who am I, right, to tell? So at a certain point, you just need to, you know, either let it be or pick your bets, or do both.
Yes.
Yeah, I think adding it helps to have, let's say, engineers, physicists in the team, and we also have, out of 12 investment managers, we have 3 physicists as well who can look at the topic. But as you said, you know, nobody can be a special expert in this field, and then you have to rely on external people, and you have to go, let's say, to more the soft factors or the easy factors. And what we as a growth investor really look at is, do we get a plan that the company can scale, and are they aware of the risks and challenges, or more challenges and opportunities of scaling the company with our money from like 20, 30 people normally to up to 100 people? Because we are focusing on these early growth rounds, and for that we actually do interviews with external people. So we do a very intensive team DD, what we call it, in order to understand, are there blank spots and how does the team interact? Because in the early growth phase, you're still investing in team, and we've seen, I think all of us, we have seen the second best technology winning the business. You know, so it's not, I mean, we have to, of course, have a technological USP. We have to understand that it's, you know, there's an advantage, defensibility and so on. But in the end of the day, as an early investor where the KPIs are quite of similar still, the team is still everything. So we spend a lot of time actually on the team, talking to them and validating the growth plan, the business plan, and the uses of fund. And of course, the other categories are standard, market, tech, financials, exit mechanics. I think that's quite standard. And yes, I think as you have lots of internal resources that we don't have. So we have a budget where we can actually hire IP expert to give us an opinion on things, where we can hire lawyers to see whether the legal documentation is state of the art. I mean, there's, let's say, cross checks in the due diligence that I think come also with a professional team, because if the data, if you manage your company and you have it under control up to 20, 30 people, that should actually be all on file and accessible to us investors and to our advisors that we hire for those areas where we're not experts ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that. Would you say, DTCF Tobias, that Kipu Tobias' founding team is kind of like the ideal setup of a founding team? Because we have here Dr. Tobias Grab, of course, a PhD in chemistry. We have Kike, a very esteemed scientist in the field, as I have heard and read during my research. And of course, we have Daniel Volz, who has a background working for McKinsey at BASF. Do you think that's kind of as close as the ideal setup of a founding team, something with the scientific expertise, but also the experience in setting actual stuff?
Diversity counts, So there is diversity in that management team in terms of background, and I think what we have in the quantum space more than in other investment areas is a lot of scientists still in their first, endeavor, So having people that come from the industry like you do, I mean, the best BSF history of Daniel, and that helps, of course. Consulting experience helps. I think that's the difference, that in the quantum computing space, it's kind of a closed shop, and you see, you see more real scientists that you have to convert, I think, towards business people. If I look at the quantum computing companies that I have in mind now, you think?
No, I totally agree. That's a typical deep tech problem, right? And that's maybe the first thing before we go into market and technology, blah blah blah. Is this a team of geeks trying to fund their science, or is this a team of geeks trying to build a big business, right? And that's the watershed. And that's not really hard to tell.
So would you invest in a startup where the founding members are only scientists and no business acumen experience, no MBA?
But there's so many VCs who have their, let's say, their grit, and I don't like that at all, because one of those grid points is never finance married people, and then you have BioNTech, you have married people becoming the stellar company leaders here in the biotech field. So I would say never, of course. But yeah, diversity helps, and what's more important than having a perfect team is knowing about the blind spots and accepting in the due diligence. I mean, we want to work as VCs to a certain extent with the teams. We're not better entrepreneurs. I'm a horrible entrepreneur, I think, but I'm hopefully a good investor, and I want to work with the teams to a certain extent on a strategic, on an organizational level, company building, and I think that's where the benefit comes from VCs also for you. And there's some stubborn people out there that just are not investable because of their,
I can give you an example of how it went well and not well. A typical thing for a young deep tech startup is give me your business plan. And more often than not is what do you mean business plan? Excel thing, plus minus, P&L, cash flow, and so on. And then you have those people who, because they're physicists and they can do math, they start to do this by themselves, and it's horrible. And then you have the other bunch of people who go out and find somebody who does that with them. And that's the type of team we're actually looking for. Now, to be aware of, okay, maybe it's just plus and minus, but I don't know anything about business plans, so I need to get somebody into the company. And that's how you build companies, right? By getting expertise, buying expertise. This is why we give money.
Kipu, Tobias, as I already mentioned, I listened to a few podcast episodes and yesterday after work.
So your education is the same like mine.
While I was knitting, my newest knitting project, Daniel told a very interesting story because he was asked, like, how do you manage a team full of scientists? He said like almost everyone, your staff has at least a PhD. And then he also mentioned that you did a Myers-Briggs personality test within the company. Can you tell us a bit more about that story? Like how do you manage, very hierarchically minded people?
So yes, we did the Myers-Briggs type indicator. Even I know that this is not a really solid concept, but what it actually does is like giving you 16 boxes where people can understand. I have a value myself, and I'm a special type, and I function very well with people who are equal to me, and I can't understand what these other persons are doing. For example, we have a lot of extroverted people who really like to do business, and they have to understand they may be introverted people who don't have a gut feeling, who does everything on data, to understand it's good that this guy does finance and give me the resources to do what I'm best at, and that is running around and failing in accepting timelines or something like that, So yes, we're doing that, and in general, I think that scientists are not not in general more difficult. Of course, people gain usually with their PhD some level of expertise where they have to jump over this first area of I'm not the center of the intellectual universe. But if that jump is, or if that curve is taken, then bright people usually understand that growing a company to a global level only function in a structure that can make decisions fast and strategically solid, and where we use diversity as something that makes us better. Yes, that has costs. I'm not the one who says that being diverse is easy. I think it's complex to work in different languages and different cultures. Understanding that my no was not is not the same like please go away and never come back. It was just a no. To understand the cultural differences is key, and we try to use different tools on that and play a little bit around that people understand that we will only be successful if we use the best out of all the people that we hire.
Is lack of talent, lack of international talent, a problem that you're encountering? Because like usually when we speak to other like non-deep tech startups, also if you're deep tech startups, they say like it's too difficult to bring the people we need here to Germany. Is that a problem that you're encountering too, or?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We are just 50 people, so we've found enough talent because of Enrico Solano's network and his expertise and his position in the ecosystem. But yes, I think on the long term, we didn't educate or motivate enough people in studying quantum physics. But I think for us, also in the non-scientific community, with doing something valuable, with having a nice approach, with maybe showing a good culture, using marketing and be visible, we can attract talent. So not yet, but if you see that globally, that all our customers also want to hire teams out of 50 quantum physicists, yes, then the talent pool will become smaller and smaller. But we don't feel that yet as a threat. Maybe after Series A, actually.
So you also like recently opened a Berlin office, if I'm right, and Daniel in the podcast episode mentioned that it was at the wish of some employees, or not at the wish, but it was a calculation behind that, not to only like stay in Karlsruhe, but also like have a presence here in Berlin?
Yeah, we have more Spanish-speaking people than German-speaking people, and I think more different nations from South America than Europe. So Karlsruhe is a nice place, and we have a technical university, but we also have a group from people from different areas of India. And the argument for Berlin is that they all get their individual food on a high quality. And that is the reason why we're here.
True that. Can confirm that for Vietnamese food. Absolutely. Tobias and Jan, what do the startups that you're managing or that are part of your portfolio say about lack of talent, problems with like immigration processes?
Yes, that's a problem.
Oh, that's okay. I'll come back to that.
Yes. So, make it quick. But I always ask for feedback after 3 months what they didn't expect in Germany. And an Indian answer from an Indian employee was, I expected that everything works in Germany. The problem is, here I can't get the follow-on date for my visa. That is a problem I can use in Hyderabad. Maybe I have to pay somebody, but I get it. Here I can't even pay somebody, so it just doesn't work. So I think to foster bureaucracy and make that usable is key, because we have to we have like half a person only trying to deal and navigate people through the bureaucracy, and the tax system as well, that always gives the first question, the paycheck, like there's some huge difference between the numbers that we discussed and the numbers on here divided by 12. So explaining the German tax system and then asking the question, what is the quality that I get? It's not so visible in Berlin, maybe.
Mm.
So these are the challenges, but sorry, I jumped in. Yeah.
That was a perfect answer. What can I say? Maybe to complicate matters a little bit, as we are invested in the UK quantum computing company, Brexit didn't help. Absolutely not. We need to live with this. And also quantum computing is not an area where you can, teach somebody within 6 months what to do. That comes from, I don't know, developing silicon chips. So I do see a certain talent shortage. I'm not sure if this will increase or decrease, because I do believe that quantum winter may be coming and a couple of companies folding. So maybe there is lots of talent coming to the companies that are still around.
Well, I can add, we just did our first French investment, so taking a European perspective, this Berlin effect, you also have in France. So there's a biotech company with a site outside of Paris, 1.5 hours, and the data scientists, they are in Paris in the center. So I think, yes, you always have the Berlin effect, melting pot where people from different countries feel more comfortable. We also, from our 12 people team, we have the Rhineland with 5 people, we have Munich, and we have Berlin as well, and we have the highest number of applications ourselves in Berlin. So Berlin, and I'm proud having studied here 25 years ago, is really emerged as the startup city of Germany, and I think it's good, and also the software place. With respect to quantum talent, I'm too far away. I'm happy to be in contact with professors. Yesterday I spoke to Alexander Schamait from the University of Rostock, a physics professor, who's educating. And yes, I think there is education taking place in Germany with the purpose of preparing young talent for the companies we are building now, and that makes me positive actually.
So you have an optimistic view on like that Germany will be able to foster quantum.
Yes.
I find it interesting because like a few months ago, I was attending an event where it was a bit of like a conference for teachers from the Smart School Network of Bitkom. And there was a consultant also there who was explaining quantum computing to the teachers there and saying like, maybe you can teach like the principles of quantum mechanics to your students, and all the teachers present there were like I don't think I have
But I think
ChatGPT.
Yes. No, and it's coming. I mean, we're focusing so much on the MINT education of young people at school, and I think it's known. And from Karlsruhe, I have another example. Just by actually, I think changing the name from pure physicists to something like healthcare applicated physics or something, there was a very strong increase in applicants. So sometimes it's also, if we make sure at universities there is a market later, then the number of applicants increases, and I think there's no special shortage that I see for, let's say, quantum physicists.
Mm-hmm. We also, like you already mentioned, that quantum technology is a global market, not a national one. However, we're living in turbulent geopolitical times, where we can see like a rise of protectionism, both in the European Union, on the US side, of course, also like in the Asia Pacific. This year we have seen a couple of export restrictions, export controls being put into place on specific emerging technologies, which include quantum computing. The list of countries includes UK, France, Netherlands, Spain, Japan, and the USA, and where they have imposed export controls that go beyond the EU dual-use regulation. Have you encountered like troubles with like cross-national transactions, corporations? Is a geopolitical chaos or strife something that you're concerned with? Also to you, Kipu, Tobias, you're a very like hardware-dependent startup. Is that a problem for you, like looking at the export controls that were put into place?
It's not a problem right now, for us at least. From the latest regulatory changes, we might not be affected, but of course that is only true in this moment. In general, yes, we want to use all existing hardware on the planet because we can make the hardware more efficient. So this is our model. We are working with hardware from the US, of course, from Europe, from Great Britain, so larger Europe, and also we have interest from China. Yes, we live in geopolitical times where dual-use technologies will be restricted. I do hope that in Germany we don't think that we will build the quantum Mittelstand by building local companies. We see their tendencies, for example, in public funding projects, where then you should calculate on German quantum hardware, which is tricky to get any result that you couldn't do with a very early computer. But I hope, and I think these are the efforts that we need to take, that we do it at least on the European scale, better on the NATO scale, and even better on a global scale if we talk about industry use cases. And there are so many that I hope that at least we, as Kipu, can build the platform, and individual hardware providers can give access to their computers, and then we depend on the regulatory affairs of the different governments who is allowed to use it. But we want to be the layer above these challenges that we come up, so that we're facing.
From a VC standpoint, how do you see?
As a global investor, export controls are probably the single most dangerous thing for our business model. Simple as that. This is a poison pill, and maybe even a big nail in the coffin, unless you're in the US and a US investor, because then the universe is big enough. If you're in Belgium, good luck. So I don't like it a bit, what we're seeing here. It's best case an overhead for the companies because they need to deal with regulation, which is not a nice thing if you're just a 20 people outfit. But it really can be deadly at time of exit because the governments tend to drag the exit process out by 6 months, 9 months. We did have experience with that. And I don't know if you ever done an M&A deal, everybody's nervous, right? There's lots of money on the table. There's jobs dependent on this. The CEO might be changing. You want to get it done before Christmas. And from the government, no response. So that's really, really bad.
Yeah, we're a European investor, and what really I wasn't aware of, and I learned in preparation of this panel, is that also within Europe there might be walls coming up, and that's super dangerous. I think we talked initially about why do we invest in quantum, because of the markets that are coming. And it's one thing, and I think all the startups can deal with it. To cut off the U.S. market is crazy. So there will be always ways around it. U.S. subsidiary. We've seen it in other more regulated industries. We have a space example in the due diligence now, where we don't know what the U.S. subsidiary does, but we don't have to know that. Even the management doesn't know. But there's sales coming in, so that's fine for us as investors. So I think the business case will hopefully prevail with some more work around it. But as Jan mentioned, for investors, the exit counts, and if the exit market US is excluded, that's dangerous. We have to then be pragmatic and say, okay, if the exit only takes place in Europe, it's a different valuation game here, because currently, even with a lot of fantasy, we can never reach multiples in the US and change the financial markets within a couple of years. So yes, there's exit possibilities. There's also the capital markets. We are doing a lot of things right here in Europe currently, but it's a different game. We have to discuss with the startups then. And currently, it's not the case. Currently, it's the single points of data points I'm getting. But if more stories of Jan, with exits being prolonged, exits actually not taking place because of some Außenwirtschaftsverordnungs stamps not given, then we have a problem. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So sum it up, we need the US market, and it would for us investors also be good if we had the choice for the companies, entrepreneurial choice, to either stay in Europe at the capital markets or go to the US if needed. Yeah.
Do you think the concerns and worries of lawmakers on both the national and European level are overblown when it comes to the possible nefarious use of quantum technology? Or would you say please relax and just let us build up our startup and do a business? Or do you can kind of understand where that comes from?
Yeah, I can understand where it comes from. So I think it's about control. It's not losing the game again. It's not making a mistake that when genie is out of the bottle, what to do then? So I can understand, and I think it also fits a little in these more nationalistic tendencies that we have in a lot of European countries. So if people are open to control the border by police, maybe they are also see the border more important in other instances. I think if we want to build global players out of Europe, out of Germany, we have to understand that without the markets, we can't build that. That is what I meant with this Mittelstand. We can, of course, serve Bosch and Daimler and BMW, but this will not to be for your advantage nor mine in order to build an exit. I hope that, as I said, maybe we can't do that with China in the upcoming future, because it's about information security. It's of course a dual use situation that we have. It could have impacts when AI and quantum merges, like understanding nuclear fission 80, 90 years ago. So yes, that is an impact to society, but I think to interpret it from a nationalistic view will not be the solution in any case. But yes, there's a risk. This could be like a singularity for mankind, so it doesn't make sense to assume what happens afterwards. But I hope that we all can stay relaxed and understand the technology and take good measures. Because we can build an atomic bomb also, the equivalent also in one nation, and we have that on the planet, so it doesn't serve us from the overall problem, I guess, but I'm not so sure.
What's your take on that?
Want to take it?
No, I think you see on this panel, we have a minimum a European view, and we don't want to cut the US market. I mean, that's I think that's the common ground, and there's also chances, and in the VC world we see chances. And with the turbulence, there is somebody at the table now with dual use and defense tech and all of that. That's, let's say, maybe it's a new hype, but at least the VC world is talking about that. So having somebody at the table who hasn't been a customer for some years, the Ministry of Defense or the public sector, somehow that might also change the game to a certain amount in these technologies. And if we think quantum as quantum encryption as a sovereignty game, then we need the markets where they come from. As an investor, rational investor, we don't care.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't speak for the government. If the government thinks this is of national interest, knock yourself out. The only thing is you need to be aware of the consequences, and if you impose more and more restrictions, the private industry will recoil, and everything needs to be financed with taxpayers' money. That's the game. And tell me now, please, government. So I know what to do. That's simple.
Okay. So as a closing question before we open up the round of questions from the audience, like we touched upon like problems in the immigration process, a possible lack of talent maybe in the long-term future, geopolitical problems that might inhibit a business, mergers and acquisitions and exits. What do you like in your view? What is like the biggest challenge like to keep the momentum going, to foster growth in the quantum technology startup and scene? And since we have only a week left before Christmas, what's your one wish that you have maybe for Santa, for the quantum startup scene, if you can add it to your wish list? So you want to start, Tobias?
Tangible quantum advantage that I can talk about. Give me my quantum advantage and I can talk about. I think it's all about role models and showing out there that this is a real application. And the earlier it comes, the more we talk about it, then I think there will be more investments going into it. It's all about role models, and I'm optimistic because, as you said, the numbers are not that bad in financing. And there's a lot of people who believe in the technology, that it will have disruptive potential, and that's a good. With storytelling, you also get some money.
I have nothing to add.
Tobias, on the VC side, is wishing for a realized quantum advantage. What do you demand from them?
Patience, support, and resources. I think that is what we need. For sure. Yes, I think currently, at least for Kipu, we have a good trajectory. We get great results. We also see inbound interest from investors, so we didn't want to fundraise for the next at least 12, 18 months. Maybe we do first closing now because of the interest and because we have the dual use case that we need to take care about. Can we optimize hardware? How can we prepare ourselves in order that we keep on that trajectory? So my wish is that we keep showing that our technology is unique and special, and then everything else is second-degree problem.
So you're wishing for more resources, only like financial resources, or also like other kinds of resources?
No, usually money can buy most of the other resources. I have to think about the answer. I'm not sure.
That's a nice closing statement, I think. I'd like to open this round for questions from the audience. Do you have any questions? Like, just raise your hand. Yeah.
Thank you. That was very interesting. I had a speech earlier today about the quantum technology investment landscape, so more of a quantitative analysis of what's going on. And one of the things that we've found, let's say, in the recent years is that most of the investments, well, there's actually a lot going on in Europe. So the ecosystem seems to be fairly strong in here, but most of the investments are either in the seed round or in the A round. And not a lot of big deals happening in here. So it seems that if you want big money, you need to go to the US. So maybe the question is, why do you think that is? Are the companies not mature enough, or is the money not there? So when they mature enough, they simply need to go elsewhere for the money. So that would probably, you have something to add?
I'd like to add something to that as well, because it's a similar question.
Okay, and so that's obviously questions to the VC representatives, but maybe for Kipu, Tobias, a question would be, okay, so if you using the funding you already got, you grow, you enter a new series, do you think you'll need to go outside of Europe?
Yeah, sorry, probably just due diligence. To be honest, I do work with Roman on a couple of projects. So, but on, I think that is the growth capital stage is really one of the real challenges that we have. I mean, Quantum Motion, 42 million round, if I remember.
Rounds,
Yeah, something like that. I mean, it was one of the biggest rounds that was ever done, if I remember rightly, in the quantum field within Europe.
Maybe Europe, yeah.
Yes. I think it's within Europe. And that's one of the issues. Now, the European Investment Bank is also trying to desperately launch its quantum fund. I mean, is this going to be a game changer at all, or is it, money that's washing around the place? So how do we actually get these 50 to 80 million funds that we're getting into, or we're seeing in the United States, but we're not yet seeing them in Europe?
Maybe I can take that. I think there's a lot of very promising initiatives out there, and the funds are now really being set up. I mean, you have Innovation Industries from Benelux, 500 million euro fund. You have numbers from the old Eurasio team, Zoe Fabian setting up a new fund, also 500 million plus. And these generalist deep tech or technology funds, they all have dedicated people for, let's say, Kipu and the like. So HV Capital was not a deep tech investor, and they invested in Kipu. So I do think up to, let's say, 50 million, the plank round that we co-led in April was 50 million. IQM last year was 124 million, led by World Fund. So you do have some examples out there. You have the whole Quantonation portfolio that they are trying to market. I think we're doing a lot of things right, and you have to give it some time, because all the measures that have been started, that pension funds invest in VC funds, then these VC funds have to step up and build the teams. But I do see these rounds getting easier together than before. Of course, 50 million and above is still very difficult.
Yeah, it's getting better. I mean, this under critical fund size and not many big funds topic is something I know since I do this, since 2008 in Europe. I think there is a root cause, which is I'm a big fan of the European diversity, but here it really bites. In the US, you have two ecosystems. There is one Silicon Valley, and then you have an East Coast ecosystem around Boston, New York, and that's it. Everybody speaks English, one big market, go. In Europe, you have the Belgian investor that only invests in Belgium because. Then you have Brandenburg Capital. I don't want to be dismissive of anyone, right? But it's the ponds are really tiny. Yeah, and that's a little bit the problem. And you cannot have 500 million and just fish in your local little thingy. And in Europe, it's hard. It's also hard for us, to do the first investment in France. It's different legislation. Everybody speaks French. Oh, surprise! And now go to Poland. So it's a little more difficult in Europe. I don't know if we ever go there, but it's getting better. I'm with you.
And so we have in our pre-seed round we accepted US-based VC, and of course I think there's just more capital there, but with DTCF and the movement in general, and hopefully some good decisions, I think there are funds that we can also make a strong Series A with strong participation from German or European money. But on the other hand, yes, of course, if we have interest from external sources, as an entrepreneur, pecunia non olet. So that is a decision that other people have to take if they want to accept or make the same offer. So we just go out fundraising, and who has inbound interest and comes to us, we are open to talk. We will need way more money to scale all the different verticals that our technology can work for. So then we are kind of opportunistic there. Let's see how long Europe is sufficient, and if we need to make changes and this is acceptable for all our shareholders, then we go rogue.
It's a bit of a depressing thing to end on, however.
Oh, it's not depressing.
Well, let's all hope that we
Hey,
can
globalizations.
Less war.
Let's all like wish put on our wish list that Kipu will stay here in Germany, in Karlsruhe, and Berlin for the foreseeable future.
We're planning to do that. Yes.
Okay, that's great. That's great to hear. We've come to an end. Thanks for your attention. Thank you for your questions. Also, thank you to our esteemed panelists for their great insights and expertise. I'd like to invite you to attend our closing keynote by Christian Winterfeld from Dell Technologies. He's going to talk about AI and data. A match made in heaven is going to take place on the Grace Hopper stage at 6 p.m. Yeah, at 6 p.m. So feel free to go there, and afterwards I think the networking night will begin. And so it's time. So if you still have some questions, I can ask them to Tobias. And Tobias, Jan has to leave pretty quickly now, unfortunately. So yeah, have a nice evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shama.